Hi, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Dimos Georgokitsos. You might know me from the Airlock Academy or from previous webinars with it for new releases. And with me is Dr. Martin Burkhardt. He's the product manager of the Airlock Gateway and the Micro Gateway. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them. There is a question tool and where Martin will be answering the questions while I'll be presenting you and show you the new features there are with the new Airlock Gateway 7.6. And before we start, a short note. It's the first time, it's actually a premiere today. It's the first time we do this webinar before the gateway has been released. So I'm going to show you shortly the new gateway, but it will be a beta version, so it's not the released version because we are waiting with the release because there is a new libcurl update announced, and we want to include that because this is going to be an important patch, and it would mean that everyone who would install the 7.6 would immediately have to patch the 7.6. Therefore, we decided to wait a few days. It should come out the next few days. It's just a matter of timing. And we're waiting for that one so we can release this thing because there are a few things in there which we would like to show you. So one thing we started already last time is the Anomaly Shield. The purpose of the Anomaly Shield is anomaly detection, which is session oriented. So within a session, if there is traffic which is unusual, which doesn't look like normal traffic, the Anomaly Shield should take over and should protect you against automated attacks. The whole thing is a complement to the already existing deny rules. So you can imagine it's like an automated allow rule recognition thing. And it's actually composed of two parts. So there is the enforcement modules, which has 8 machine learned features implemented. It's configurable. There's thresholds which you can adapt to fine tune. If you have some false positive rates, you can just tweak a little bit so it's not that aggressive as it might be. It's actually an anomaly indicator pattern. So you see if traffic doesn't look like the usual traffic on these applications. There are different actions which you can turn on, like you can tell it to log only and not to block, or to completely block the whole session. Of course, it's possible to have exceptions and exclusions. So if you want to run a pen test or something like this, you can define an exception. There is an analytics tool which you can run on the command line to see what is happening on the system, or you can have a look at the logs and the dashboards which are also included, of course, where you can see immediately if something is going on which would be quite interesting for you or what you wanted to know. Of course, as always, there's documentation on docsairlock.com. You can reach the documentation without any authentication, so you can have a look at docsairlock.com and see what this Anomaly Shield is about and what it brings with it. Aside the enforcement module, there's a training module, which helps you to train new models. Also, it's possible to have some exclusions. It's actually created to be manually executed, but of course you can automate it by using cron. And therefore, let's say you have a cron job starting the training module every morning. So you can do that, of course. And what's important to understand, this is not a part of the released product. So if you want to access the Anomaly Shield, you should join the Customer Innovation Program. This means the Anomaly Shield isn't part of the default installed Airlock Gateway. So it doesn't have impact for customers who don't use it. It will be, or it is an additional component with new technology which is installed additionally to the Airlock Gateway. Therefore, users not wanting to use this Anomaly Shield simply don't don't install this additional component. And what's also important to know for now, it's the configuration for now is only through the expert settings, so you can define it in the configuration center, but you have to type in what you want to define. There is no GUI yet done. If you want to join this innovation program, you can contact the account manager or send an email to your account manager, actually, or send an email to Michael Dujak at ArgonCH, Michael Dujak at ArgonCH, who is having a look over the whole process, who is then taking over customers and helping them to integrate the whole product of the Anomaly Shield. For those who don't want to join the Anomaly Shield, there are also some changes within the Airlock Gateway 7.6, which are quite nice to, which actually they're not that fancy as other changes might have been, but for everyday's work, it's quite interesting. For instance, the SSL TLS settings are finally in the GUI. So if you want to set up backend connections using a client certificate for the backend connection, or having a specific SSL TLS version per backend group, you can do that now in the GUI. Also in the virtual host, you can change the ciphers you want to virtual host to have, and to show them against the client. So in here, you see this is the virtual host I've set up for this webinar, and the SSL settings now are just a tab away, where you define how the certificate can be obtained, and of course down here the new changes, what SSL protocol you want to use, what cipher suite you want to use, or in the backend group, as mentioned, it's also in there. There's also an SSL tab where you define what client certificate the Airlock gateway should use when it contacts the server, the backend server, and then what certificate protocol or what protocol to use and what cipher suite to use. It's very small change, but very effective for many people who want to set up those connections to the backends or to the clients. It makes life much easier. Then another small change, which helps with REST resources and trailing slashes. The problem is with REST that a resource often doesn't have, or usually doesn't have a trailing slash, and behavior up to now with the gateway was always that it was expecting a trailing slash with the call, and therefore if the trailing slash was missing, it would redirect to the according path. So this is standard behavior on the left side, where let's say you have a path called /users, slash in this case, the standard behavior is it matches everything which comes on the /users slash. Let's say /users /John Doe, but it doesn't match /users. So, or it matches it, but it makes a redirect to /users /, which of course is the wrong behavior for REST calls. And therefore in REST environments, people had to shorten down the directory. And now the new behavior, if you don't enforce the trailing slash, that's the new option we have in here, is that you can define the /users path, which means that everything with /users and /users /John Doe will be accepted. But for instance, that doesn't match /users details, which is simply a different path and not a part of the subpath of /users. So this behavior will make life with REST resources much easier. It's a simple click on the enforced trailing slash where you can remove that and then work with the according mappings. There are also a few more changes which I want to note, like first of all, the release notes are or will be, of course, on docs.airlock.com instead of the tech zone, which means that everyone can reach the release notes. So you can have a look at the release notes without having to log into the tech zone. it will be linked on the download page. So if you go to the text on the download file, you can there will be a reference to the according release notes, but they are fixed on the talk2airlock.com, like was having it for a long time already, and the micro gateway will do the same thing. Then a change for accessibility. There are actually new rewrite variables which allow you to include the timeout, the session timeout remaining of the Airlock gateway. So this was often an issue that the session handling was done by the Airlock gateway, but there was no possibility on the backend to have an accurate time or to include this information. And now there's a rewrite variable which allows you to take the remaining time and put it into text and send it to the client. So the client will always see how long this session is still living on. Additionally, the alerting email can now be changed, so the sender configuration can be adapted. So if you create alerting, set up alerting when events happen, like a configuration activation has been done, or there were too many blocks on the system, there's something going on, you can set up the alerting, and the sender configuration is now changeable. Another thing which is very nice, if you have classic high availability failover, the partner node settings are now editable on the system. So if you are on one system, you can change the partner node settings through this GUI without to have to change a logout and change to the other system, which was necessary up to now. And last but not least of the one we want to mention is the logging of external tracking headers. So if you have a tracking header which is put in externally by an application, you can set the Airlock gateway up to log that. Therefore, you can set up the logging through different components with this tracking header, which goes through different components, and therefore have a look on the log and see what requests, what sessions relate to the according tracking header on the other component, and therefore you can correlate those logging messages over different systems. There are deprecations, just a few, but there are deprecations. Actually, there's one big deprecation. SSL version 3 will be deprecated. It's still on the system, but it's deprecated, so it might be removed in one of the future versions. Please try to eliminate SSL version 3. We introduced a few versions ago the possibility that you can see what SSL versions were used and what ciphers were used when the connection to the gateways were done from the client. So you can analyze your logs, have a look at them, and see, do I really still need SSL version 3, or did I just have it in there just to relax myself and be sure that anyone can connect to my Airlock gateway? So go through the logs. If you see SSL version 3 isn't used anymore, remove it. So when we remove it from the Airlock gateway, you won't have any surprises. And of course, the low strength ciphers, which were possible to set up for some connections, were removed completely. There are a few actions required. Of course, the backend SSL TLS settings, which are now in the GUI, were configurable before in the expert settings, also the ciphers of the virtual host. If you have something like this configured, please remove them from the expert settings and set it up in the GUI. Then the CSRF tokens will protect now all modifying verbs. It was, I think, post, which was protected up to now. For now on, all modifying verbs will be protected with CSRF. Please test your application. If you have any HTTP methods which is not post or get, and the JSON path parsing, which was introduced the last time, was improved. So if you're using this JSON path parsing, go through your application to be sure that we didn't change anything which doesn't match your behavior anymore. One small thing at the end, if you use SafeNet HSM, there might be some old Java clients which will have problems with the connection to this one. So if you use SafeNet HSM, be aware that old Java clients might have problems with the connections. Another thing which will be released about the same time, like the Gateway 7.6, will be the Micro Gateway 2.0. Both of them based on the same filtering engine, so the behavior should be, when you send requests through them, should be identical. We did some big changes on the Micro Gateway 1.0. This is the reason why we call it 2.0, because there will be init containers. I don't want to stay too long on this topic. I will just mention them for people who are interested. We're having tomorrow, I think about the same time, we're having the webinar about the Micro Gateway. Just a few notes for those who won't join. So we introduced Kubernetes init container. This makes that the running container of the Micro Gateway will be much smaller. It will take much less resources. There was a possibility with Micro Gateway 1 to integrate Airlock IAM, but now the integration is much easier. There are different ways you can integrate it, and depending on what you want to set up, there are different ways how you can achieve your goal. Then there's a nice addition, the Prometheus metrics, which means that you can add a Prometheus container to the side of the Airlock Micro Gateway, and this one can reach the information from the Airlock Gateway, Micro Gateway. The Micro Gateway will publish its information on a specific port where the Prometheus can contact it, and therefore you have analytics and metrics on the Prometheus container where you can see how your Micro Gateway, or how all the Micro Gateways, of course, will perform. There are extended TSL settings like deny rule group settings, the possibility to define backend groups per mapping instead of per virtual host and things like this. And last but not least, there is an Airlock Minikube example where we integrated different things like a backend service, an IAM, the Micro Gateway, the metric server, and you can turn this thing on and have a look at the whole thing as it is, and see how we set this up, see what is possible, see how this metrics, Prometheus metrics container works. Okay, there is some information which is of course close to my heart since I'm doing the academy. We introduced new Guru courses for people who are already certified. Those are IAM courses. They are about OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect. Actually, a few scheduled the next few months. And we have a new Guru course for the Logging Up REST UI and API. So talking about flows and single page application. If you want to have a look at them, there are courses for that too. And last but not least, again, it's actually on the top. There is one course which is outside our certification program. We will have a Micro Gateway course. The reasoning being is that people who will use the Micro Gateway, like service developers, usually don't have anything to do with the Airlock Gateway or the Airlock IAM usually. And therefore, we will have one course of one day where we introduce to people like this the whole Micro Gateway, how you can configure it, how you can set up the whole thing, how you can check the liveness, and how you can have a look at the metrics. We talked about the Prometheus thing just before, and so on and so on. This is one day, and the first one is planned on the July of 7th. It's not yet on the web page. It will be, of course, when the Micro Gateway will be released. It's based on Micro Gateway 2. This is why we're waiting for the Micro Gateway 2 to be released to announce this training, but the date is already fixed, so it will be 7th of July for any of you who want to have a look at this. As I said, tomorrow there will be also at 9 o'clock Micro Gateway 2.0 webinar. You can register on the tech zone if you want, or through the mailing you got. And of course, in the afternoon, there's a German version of this of the recording webinar today of this webinar, and tomorrow of the Micro Gateway webinar. If any of your colleagues missed this webinar, you can have a look at them in a few days. I think it will be about Friday, where we can we'll set everything online on TechZone/ch/webinars. You can have a look at the slides and at the recorded webinar and see what I was saying. That's it. Actually, 20 minutes. It's a short one today. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to continue asking questions. I saw there were some questions asked already. Martin and I will stay online to have a look at those questions. Otherwise, enjoy your day. See you next time.